Boker Tov, good morning. It is Friday once more. It is crispy out. The sun is shining, so I'm not totally complaining. This is my favorite weather, so you'll not catch me complaining about I'm too cold. Certainly in the fall. Maybe in the winter when it's gray outside, I'll have something better to complain about. But as Ellis was running up the hill to the bus stop this morning, he said, "This weather is great. I'll take it." I said, "Take it where?" And he said, "Well, yesterday it was so windy, the wind was taking me everywhere." I thought, oh, he's so witty. But nobody likes the wind. Come on, we know this already. Except for when we need the wind at our back to push us forward into something. And so here we are, pushed forward closer toward Shabbat as we find our way, as we push forward into the weekend or into the day of rest, as it were. And where does that come from? It comes from this week's Parsha. So and I'll say it again, so I'm not repeating myself unintentionally, but rather with intent. Our Erev Shabbat service tonight will be at 7 p.m. We have another commitment earlier on, so we will be 7 o'clock for tonight. So not 6:30, but 7. So let's dive into what this week's Parsha is. I know we've gotten a lot of it simply just because, well, it was Simchat Torah, and so we know that it is the start of the annual cycle of Torah reading, which means we're starting in the beginning, which means Bereshit, in the beginning. Whenever I think about it, and of course I thought I had a picture on my computer, but I don't. But in the older books, like the kind that smell like old library, the fairy tales that would say in the beginning, or whatever the first line of text would be, the first letter would be blown up, sometimes in a box, sometimes with fancy font. And that is true of Torah also. The letter B in Bereshit, the first letter of the Torah, is big. In the beginning. And so when we open this reading up, when we open the Torah up, when we open our learning, Bereshit talks about the responsibility of creation. It says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heavens and earth. It's a verse we've heard. Sorry, my phone is on sound. It's a verse we've heard countless times, but every year it calls us to read it differently. The same reason we read maybe our favorite book or our favorite article or our favorite something over and over, because it hits differently. Not to ask only how the world began, but why. In Torah, there's lots of interpretation. The Torah isn't a science text, it's a moral and spiritual map. From the very first line, it insists that creation is not random, that life has purpose, that human beings are here for something. And then comes that extraordinary statement that human beings were created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. But what does that mean? If we dehumanize is not the right word. If we personify God, then we're expecting God to be a certain way. The man on the throne with the staff, with the long beard, more like a Moses-looking something. But Maimonides teaches that being B'Tselem Elohim doesn't mean we physically resemble God. It means that we share some of God's essence, our capacity for reasoning, for imagination, for moral choice. The idea that we can build and we can destroy and we can speak and we can forgive and we can begin again. In the same light, there was I think it's 19th century, don't quote me, but I think it's 19th century, Hasidic master, the Sfat Emet, or Sfas Emes, for those of you that are of the old school Ashkenazi pronunciation, adds another dimension that says B'Tselem Elohim means that within each person there's a spark of divine creativity, a piece of God's ongoing creation. When we act with compassion, when we create beauty or justice, we are quite literally continuing the work of Bereshit, the creation in the beginning. But Torah doesn't present this ideal in a vacuum. Immediately after being placed in a perfect world, humanity begins to unravel. Wow, kind of sounds like now. But it started then. Adam and Eve reach for what is forbidden. Cain, in a fit of jealousy, destroys his brother. The very beginnings created by God, God's image, use the same creative power to harm. It's heartbreaking and deeply human. It's the paradox of B'Tselem Elohim, which is it gives us the power to choose and therefore the power to fail. But that gift is the gift of choice. The Midrash says, Bereshit Rabbah. I just read it last night. One would think I would remember the numbers, but I don't. Anyway, Bereshit Rabbah, it teaches that when God saw that creation contained both good and evil, God still called it Tov Me'od, that it was very good. The rabbis interpret this to mean that even our darker impulses, our Yetzer Hara, can serve good if channeled wisely. Ambition and power and desire, when aligned with purpose, but you got to keep it aligned, can lead with growth, and we grow. Can lead towards creativity, and we create. Can lean and push towards compassion, and we can have open hearts. So from the very beginning, the Torah teaches that being human means living in tension between light and shadow, between freedom and responsibility. The creation story is less about this cosmic origin and more about our own ethical conscience, the consciousness of the people, about what we will do with this creative power that is placed in our hands and our hearts. And there's no accident that the first action that is created is light. Not sunlight, because that doesn't appear till day 4. But primordial light. Like it's dark everywhere. And then there was light. The Zohar says this was a spiritual light, a light of awareness, a light of moral clarity, hidden away from Adam and Eve, sinned, but still accessible to those who seek it. Okay? So we touch that hidden light whenever we bring a little bit of understanding into moments of confusion or compassion when there's conflict. In a world that is fractured, in a world that is dim, every act of empathy, of learning, or justice is an act of Bereshit. A small act equals, no matter how small, a small creation of light. And so we are, as we know, the co-creators. But how do we become that? One of the most striking details in the text comes from the words Vayikach Adonai Elohim et ha'adam v'nachenu began Eden le'ovda u'shomra. God took the human being and placed them, sorry, I'll just change the text myself, placed them in the Garden of Eden to till it and tend it. Humanity's first commandment wasn't to pray, wasn't to study, wasn't to obey, but it was to care. To protect what is given. The world was entrusted to us. Creation is not complete without human partnership. The partnership continues every time we bring order when there's chaos. Kindness where there's cruelty, courage where there's fear. When we mend and heal and restore or forgive, we are co-creators of the divine. And each and every year, we return to the beginning. So as we begin the Torah again, we're not simply rewinding a story. We're invited to begin again, to return to our own Bereshit, our own beginning. That might mean for us as individuals and as a community to live as we truly believed we are B'Tselem Elohim, connected to oneness. What would it mean to approach every conversation, every disagreement, every act of service with the consciousness that we carry divine potential within us? The Torah begins with, let there be light. Our task, always, is to keep that light shining. Beloved friends, Bereshit is not only the story of how God created the world. It's the story of how we are meant to recreate it every single day. If God's first act was to say, let there be light, then our sacred responsibility is to ensure that light never fades through the moral and creative and compassionate choices that we make. Thank you for learning with me this morning. We're going to continue to create that light. Thank you, Shah and Jeneba, Lori, Ann, Aileen, Elisa, Bet, Suze, Amy. It's great to be with you. Reminder, tonight's service is going to be at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. tonight, right here on YouTube and Facebook. It will not be at 6:30. It will be at 7. So just so you know in advance, I'll also post it so we know. Let's continue to show up as the light in the world, reminding ourselves that God's first act was let there be light. Our sacred responsibility is to carry that torch, to keep it shining, to remind ourselves to approach every conversation, every disagreement, every act of service with the consciousness that we carry divine potential. We are one human family, one heart of abundant love. We love you. Have a great day, everybody. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Chai. Shabbat Shalom, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Chai. Good Shabbos, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Chai. Od Avinu Chai. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.